Hey everyone, welcome to Geek Rant, and today we're going to be talking about the Acolyte. Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. It's Greg again here with Toby, and today we're going to be talking about the series The Acolyte.
Hmm.
And it's certainly been an interesting ride, I would say. It's set in a time which is about 100 years, I believe, before. Probably the time before the prequel, wasn't it? I think they said 100 years
It's before the
before.
prequels because
Yeah,
it a lot of the theory, the theory and the story is about the build up to the corruption of Anakin.
yeah. And the
So
sort of the forming of the Empire as well, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah, and the position of the Senate and the Jedi Order.
yeah.
So it's pre that, and so they're trying to give some foundation to that earlier stage.
Yes. And I actually thought, that could be an all right idea.
Yeah.
It's the thing with Star Wars, the original film, and this is what I've been sort of pondering about it as a series, is when you watch the original Star Wars, they obviously talk about the old Republic and how it used to be all the peace and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it sounds good as a legend, as
Yeah.
as a history.
Yeah.
To actually go back and see it and to try and make it work as a series, and I think it's
Yeah.
actually quite a difficult thing to do. Because
Yeah.
you're when you can talk about the past and have a rose tinted, and you can make it sound heroic and amazing and all this sort of thing, but
Mm.
actually go back and see it and do it, I think
Mm.
that's one of the things I think is a bit of a challenge with any new Star Wars series or thing that
Yeah.
they're trying to produce.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would say that it's actually a brave thing to do
hmm,
because it very much exists in people's minds in a particular way,
hmm,
and you're re-examining a period that is the foundation to everything that
yeah,
comes next. So
yes,
it's gotta satisfy people,
yeah,
and there's the peace element is the thing that
yes,
is important in this series. It's like, how does that peace become broken?
yeah,
And they hint at a number of things throughout the show that a Jedi
hmm,
can have faults. There
yes,
can be problems
yeah,
with the
yeah,
Jedi,
yeah,
and they
yeah,
can go as far as trying to cover up the things that they've done, you know,
yes, yes,
and the balance of the Force can therefore be disrupted. And in my mind, that sounds like an excellent foundation to something that could become an interesting story.
yes. I agree, and again, my knowledge of Star Wars is more limited to the films than Clone Wars and a lot of stuff
Yeah,
in these sort of animated series, and I didn't really watch those.
yeah, and the
So
books, incidentally.
yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of stuff like that that I'm simply just not
Mm.
aware of. So apologies if we say anything in the sort of in this video that's
Well, I
contradictory,
don't,
but
I don't think there are many people that have read all the books, say, for
no,
example.
no.
But apparently, with this film, a lot of
Hmm.
the lore is drawn from the book called one of the Star Wars Legends book called Darth Plagueis by James Luceno, and a lot of what we see evolve in this is taken from that. And
That's
well, we can talk
interesting.
about Darth Plagueis later because you see a little bit of him at the end, but
Yeah,
there is
yeah.
there's reasoning for it. Initially, you don't think there is. It's just a story about twins and some kind of twisted force situation.
Yes.
But actually, there's a much bigger picture here, and they're trying to do something much more involved than what would initially be seen. Rather, it's not like an Obi-Wan TV show that just seemed completely built upon one concept.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, which I think also the Obi-Wan slightly d damaged some of the canon and the lore that, you know, him interacting with Princess Leia when she was so young and all that sort of thing. I think
Yeah, yeah,
this is the danger, and when you've got so many people out there who know so much about it and got sort of like a encyclopedic knowledge
yeah,
what's happened in it. When something happens in one of these series, people are
yeah,
straight on it, aren't they, to jump on it and you
yeah.
know. But then I think to myself, well, yeah, but that's sometimes it's people's memory. You know, if I remember back to something that happened 30 years ago, I can't remember it fully 100%. So
Yeah.
there's always a bit of license for it
Mm,
to be slightly different to what they said, you know.
mm.
Some of this is nice. It's a little bit further back, so that there's not too many characters that are going to pop up that are from the original stuff and
Yeah,
contradict it. You know, obviously
good point.
Yoda is one of the main characters who he was 900 years old, so you kind of think, okay, he'll be somewhere around in this, and you do see him obviously right at the end. But it was nice that there was a whole raft of new characters. And my I think my main criticism is I felt like the story was a bit all over the place. I felt like it was written by 10 different people. Each episode, even some of the characters seemed a little bit different from one episode to the next episode. At one point where May says, I'm going to give myself over to the Jedi and I'm going to surrender. In the very next episode, when she meets the first Jedi, she's going in there. It's like she's back on this mission of trying to kill them. And I think there was things like that that to me just made it very inconsistent in places. The broad story was a bit odd, you know. They kept building up to there's going to be some great prize, everybody. And well, I didn't feel particularly surprised by what was kind of what happened, really.
Oh, well,
Um,
I mean, I have a
some
different
dark
view on it.
secret that the Jedi, you know, I know he ended up killing the mother. She had turned herself into this dark vapor and was starting to suck her daughter into it. And Saul's whole attitude was, "I got to protect the kid."
Yeah.
That's why he attacked, you know. And I wasn't sure. I think this is where I get a little bit confused. I wasn't sure whether they were trying to show that the Jedi were bad, or if they were trying to suggest, you know, he's covering something major up. I mean, I know he didn't say, "Oh, I killed your mother," you know, because I don't think that would have
Mm,
gone down very well when they were
no.
training her.
Mm. Yeah.
But do you
Well,
see what I mean? Did you feel like that? Did you feel it was a
I
bit?
felt slightly different to you in that respect. For
Hmm,
me, it was all about cover up in a way. And I think that that was quite a strong theme through the show.
yeah,
The fact that Soul is put forward as this noble Jedi,
yeah,
when actually it's this flaw that he had to cover this up and lie to Oshi as she grew up,
hmm,
and that he, in a sense, was covering up some dark form of force, something that could be a kind of primeval kind of Sith form of magic.
I
And
see.
what he did in a sense was cover up the beginning of the Sith, because he saw what she did and what she became. Now that was a bit over the top in a sense. What she then became, this kind of this mist, this black kind of
Yeah,
fog. I don't think anybody really liked that so much, but
no,
he did react to kill her, and then he knew that Oshi was part of this force,
hmm,
you know, and his dawning, he starts to become more aware of what she potentially is,
yes,
and we learn that Oshi didn't actually, she was rejected by the Jedi because actually she showed signs of anger and frustration,
yes,
signs of the dark side as she was being trained.
yeah,
So
yeah,
all the time, in a way, Soul is covering up little bits of information that facilitate her then becoming full circle and us realizing that it's actually May who is the one that could become the Jedi and not Oshi. And so there's this kind of, and then so it's like there's a tragic side to it, how he wants to help her but he can't, and he's kind of torn. And you know, maybe Lee Jung-jae couldn't quite portray that.
yeah,
Sometimes I felt that his acting as Sol was a bit confusing. He didn't show his stress, or he showed a lot of confusion. But I reckon at times there could have been slightly more anger, more.
I felt like he was putting a lot of effort in. I felt like
Yeah,
he
me
was
too.
trying his best and with it's poorly written in places, isn't it? You know, as a piece, you know.
Yeah.
It's there's not always the best of lines in there. And I think he's also had some very conflicting things to do. One minute he's calling a distress call to the Republic, and then the next minute he's switching it off and running away. Then the next episode he's calling them again, and it's
Yeah.
very backwards and back and
I
forth.
felt that a lot
Yeah,
of that was reactionary to the moment, though.
that's true. That's
I
true.
thought that things were happening that were moving it along. I didn't feel at any time like it was sort of a stagnant, boring mid-season thing. I
Did
just
you
felt
not
that there was
think? Did you
always lots
not
of things
think?
happening.
I see. I personally, I thought the episode where they went to find the Wookiee Jedi, and they were walking through the forest, and there was, you know, that was felt really filler episode to me. Then the episode where
Yeah, but they had a great fight in that one, didn't they? And I thought there was that
no,
the one where they were
that's
fighting in the
no,
is that the next one,
it's the next episode,
next episode.
and I felt it. There probably for 8 episodes there wasn't enough in it to be 8 episodes. There was stuff that was happening that I thought this is a bit pointless. It's a bit drawn out. But then
Then I think on reflection, some of those made sense at the end. You know,
right.
some of the stuff that was going on. So
Hmm.
um, we saw why they were doing things, why they were on the planet, and what they were looking for when they were kind of just running around doing nothing. And we kind of figure out why,
Yeah, I
what
mean
that.
that was one where we saw them on the planet and they were using a
There was some.
a metal detector to find life forms
Yeah,
and
I mean, listen, don't question the methods of the Jedi. I mean, whatever that was, but that didn't seem to make sense at the time. But then you kind of got there trying to measure the level of force within the environment, why these plants have grown like they have done. But I mean,
yes.
that aside,
Yeah, but
I
as a
think it's
Jedi,
easy to
that's the
point
sort
it.
of thing that I sort of think that's where the whole point of the Force and the Jedi and that sort of thing is that it's like a spiritual, mystical thing that they sense. You know, they don't have machines, you know, for doing it. I know they've mentioned the midichlorians a little bit in this, where they've taken the blood, you know, but
Mm,
that for me was one of the biggest mistakes George Lucas made when he went did the prequels was to come up with this
yeah, no,
midichlorian thing.
I agree. I
It was
agree.
so much better when it was about them feeling things and so on. And you know, if they're
Mm,
going to a planet, and
mm.
I mean, for one thing, I don't understand how they could have not seen that great big fortress thing that these witches were all living in. That did baffle me a little bit because it was on top of a mountain. It was very clearly
Mm.
a working, you know,
Yeah,
like
I
they were
mean,
stumbling around to try and find
I
anybody. It
think
was
that
it's
that's
things like
true.
that. It's things
I
like that
think that
which
there
is a
are
bit
little
weird.
things like that, but I think you can poke
Yeah,
holes in lots of shows.
yeah,
I
that's
mean,
true. That's true, and
I
I
think that
do.
the thing is, well, I mean, we looked at Game of Thrones last season, we loved it. But
Yeah.
I'm sure if I sat down and pointed out what happened to him, what happened to him, what happened to that, why didn't they recognize that? I'm sure that there would be lots of things like that in really good shows as well. It just happens because this is Star Wars, it comes under the magnifying glass. I think that there's a lot of
Oh no,
people
I
that
agree
will
with you. I do
pick
agree with
things
you.
out, and
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that I think you then at that point you then have to say those things matter more when the rest of the show's crap.
yeah.
But for me, the rest of the show was actually quite good in the
Okay,
Acolyte.
okay, that's interesting.
So I think that when you've got it's the balance, as
Yeah.
in it is with the Force. If you've got like if you've got like lots of little sort of inconsistencies in a show, you tend to look over those. I
Yeah.
mean, like Andor, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the beginning of Andor, and you think, what the hell's going on with that? And
Yes,
never makes much
but
sense.
the difference for me is Andor was really well written. A lot of that
This wasn't that bad written,
a
this
lot
this
of
show.
that
Because a lot of
was
it harks back to the original Star Wars. So a lot of the lines are in the same tenor as the original Star Wars films. So they take a lot of the original lines from the original films and recycle them, reuse them in
No,
different
I
situations.
mean, like where the witches are chanting the power of one, the power of two, the power of many. I mean, that just I cringed. I cringed at that bit. I thought
Yeah,
that
but
was terrible.
I don't agree. I think that I think the whole the witch thing went too far in its presence.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that sort of thing is very primal. It's very sort of basic. That's in lots of shows, you know.
I mean, thinking about how they then interpreted the Force, obviously talking about
Yeah,
the witches side of
yeah.
things there, you know,
Mm,
that was something that, I'd heard as people were criticizing online about, oh, they've changed the Force and that sort of thing. And personally, I didn't agree with that. I
mm.
didn't think they changed the Force
The
at all,
thread.
right? They just call it they see it as the thread. It's
Yeah.
just another way of interpreting what the Force was.
Mm,
For me, I think there were some other bits within the program, which I thought, right, okay, is this pushing the boundaries of the Force of what we know from the main films? So it was things like this when they go to get this Master Tobin or Torbin,
Corbin.
um, is it Torbin?
Hmm.
Um, and he is suspended in midair and he's got like a force shield, you see. Now
Yeah,
I did
yeah,
I was kind of a little bit like, is that a forced power? But I suppose it could be. And maybe
yeah,
he's learned how to do it.
yeah,
The whole thing about possessing people, their eyes going all black and they
yeah.
possess them is I mean, is that a witch thing or is that a force
Mm,
thing? And I think that's
mm,
where a little bit like they're
mm,
trying to come up with some new ideas here,
mm.
trying to,
I felt like the force field, for Torbin was.
hmm.
I mean, the whole Torbin thing, his role in this feels
He
like
was the one of the worst characters,
yeah,
wasn't
he
he?
was, but I feel like there was a
And the
bit sort of
makeup
cut
was
out to
terrible.
explain.
The makeup was terrible that
Yeah,
made
it
him
was.
look 15 years older.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. But I mean, I don't think that I don't think they were pushing the boundaries too much with his force shield. The
No.
witch thing with the possessing of the minds, I thought was a really good addition. I thought that was fascinating,
Okay.
and I thought that actually is a different branch almost of the force, and
Yeah, I'm not
because
saying it couldn't happen,
no,
couldn't
no,
be a
I just
power.
I quite liked it. I
I
thought it
was
was
I
quite
was just
good.
try I think I was just trying to work out, was it just part of because they're part of this witch cult and that's their part of their power as a witch cult, or
Mm,
is it something that the Jedi would use, but they obviously don't. Um,
mm.
it was a bit odd that they could sort of turn into a big black mist and then go into somebody else's body. I didn't know.
Yeah, the
I
whole
just wasn't.
possession thing.
Yeah. I was a
I,
bit
I
like,
quite like the concept. The possession has got a long heritage within lore, within the history of the world.
hmm,
So I think that on some level, you could argue that that exists already within culture.
yeah,
As
yeah,
in, religious possessions.
yes,
As a next step into this, it kind of I feel like it makes sense to me, and I didn't mind it at all.
yeah,
He was weaker mind as well, so it wasn't as if she could do that to a Jedi. So,
yes.
you
Well,
know,
he was a Padawan at that
yeah,
stage, wasn't he?
yeah, absolutely.
But then you saw the Wookiee guy get possessed later, don't you?
That's true. That is very true. But I think that was the combined effort, wasn't it, of all
That's
the
true. The
witches.
power of many, I
Yeah,
suppose.
yeah, 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 absolutely. Which
But then,
I think makes sense. I quite like that. The whole concept of them being able to combine their powers because they're a covenant, aren't they?
yes,
They
yeah,
have
yeah.
that ability. I didn't actually think at any point there was too much of a leap to
No,
believe what was going on, and how they handled the Force throughout the show. I thought fitted in. It didn't go stupid. like episode 1 and 2 and 3 with some of the things they did in that.
Yeah.
And I just thought that it kind of stayed within the confines of using force, as
I
in
mean,
actual physical
I
pushing.
thought some of like the fighting and the lightsaber battles were okay, you know. More I
Soul
actually
and
yes.
Chimeras was bloody excellent. It was
Yes.
more than okay. It was
Yeah.
bloody amazing.
Yeah, that was a good fight, that one.
No,
Do you
it was amazing.
you mean in the last episode?
Yeah, the last
Yes, the last
episode,
episode
Soul and Chimeras
that was good.
fight.
But but then I didn't like the two girls fighting. That was a bit the way they
They
were
went for
going
a
at each other.
particular style with that, didn't they? They
Yeah,
went kind of
yeah.
almost like some of those
Like
Batman
no
scenes,
style at all.
some Batman scenes, but they're using a lot of short arm blocks,
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
like that, you know. And I thought that was, I thought that kind of fitted the situation. They were in a closed, confined space, you know, and
She
they were
was
teaching
very
martial
up. She
arts.
was very angry, wasn't she? So she it was a bit feral, wasn't it? The way that
Yeah,
they approached it.
you could
Um,
see her turning, her kind of the kind of, you know,
yeah.
this is part
And
of
the
it.
fact, the other thing that I also thought from the first episode, having Carrie-Anne Moss in it,
Yeah.
really sort of made it. Right,
Yes.
there's a bit where she sort of jumps and steps up to the
Yeah. Yeah.
balcony, and it's like, hang on, that's too Matrix, you know. That's
Well, you may say that, but it's certainly kind of kung fu movie style, isn't it? Using
yes,
wires. They're
yeah,
using wires, and I thought they used wires so effectively in that last fight with Soul and Chimera. I thought that was like a bit where Soul they drop from that balcony
yes,
and
they
he
fall back,
slow
yeah.
mo. I just thought that was so good. I was like, wow. I just thought that what a great idea. Everything's going so fast, and suddenly they just slow the moment down.
Yeah.
And I thought that was
What, you mean a bit
fantastic.
like the Matrix?
Well, yeah, but that
Yeah,
was.
sorry, that was like to go
I
round
know
it.
you keep
Yeah.
quoting the Matrix,
Oh
but
no,
this is
no.
the Matrix took that from other films, you know. So this isn't
Yeah,
like
no, no, you're
you know
right. You're right.
this isn't the Matrix brought that to the Western culture
No,
when really it
it's only
already.
because Trinity is in it. You
Of
know,
course, of course.
that's the reason I'm associating it with it. But
No,
you're right. You're right. There's a lot of films, lots of, you know, like you say,
yeah.
Chinese sort of stuff that's
I
does
mean,
all that.
what's the sleep? Something
Crouching
dragon sleep.
Tiger, Crouching Tiger,
Yeah,
Hidden
Crouching Tiger.
Dragon.
That brought the wire work
It
to
did.
Western culture,
It
you
did.
know,
Yes. Yeah.
and you know, there are echoes of that within the show, and I really like that, especially seeing, you know, because of Lee Jung-jae's origins, you know, and I
Yes.
thought that was quite an interesting thing to
Yeah, it certainly
do.
had that feel, didn't it? And
Yeah,
I thought that at certain points when he was, you know, fight. There was a couple of bits where he fought hand to hand as well.
yeah.
I
So
yeah.
I applaud the fighting in this. There's one or
Okay.
two moments that we can point to
Yeah.
where some of the Jedi just wave their lightsabers
Yeah.
around looking
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
I think that has happened in just about every single Star Wars
Oh yeah,
film,
God yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and
The one always gets me is the bit where the Emperor suddenly comes to life, you know, and he sort of does a corkscrew attack and kills three of these Jedi like they're not even
yeah,
there.
yeah.
That bit always makes me laugh. I prefer this style of fighting to the crazy jumping around that they did in some of the
Oh,
prequels. I mean,
this was so
that looked
stupid.
crap, didn't it? You
It
know,
really did. It looked very cartoony, you know. Whereas
mm.
I felt this was kind of gritty
It had a
and
little bit more to it, didn't it? A little bit more realism and
yeah.
although it was still, you know, bloody hell, if someone could do that, that's pretty amazing.
There's a bit where Soul is blocking the lightsaber,
Hmm.
um, of Chimera, and he's pushing it towards
Yeah,
his this helmet, this awesome looking helmet, is
yeah,
made of this saber resistant material, and its
yeah,
flecks of the material are being pulled towards the saber
yeah.
as the saber screams at the helmet as if it's almost portraying Soul's anger,
Yeah.
that, you know, all the kind of grief that's coming out of him at this moment when he realizes, you know, that this is his
Yeah,
fault,
and
you
that was
know.
good. I
Mm,
liked I kind of liked the Soul character. I know he was flawed and he had issues controlling emotions at times. She kept saying, "Oh, you're too emotionally attached," and all this sort of thing. And there was definitely that moment, wasn't there, where he was going to kill him. He was going to kill he'd beaten him through his anger and his aggression. I suppose if he hadn't, sorry, spoilers here, if he hadn't been killed at the end, he may have gone to be different. He could have become a baddie.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the thing with the Force, isn't it? You have to try and maintaining a sound sort of character, haven't you, to be able to stay on the good side. They had some funny characters in there. Yord was a bit of a weird character. I thought they were using him as a bit of a kicking. I didn't like the young Tobin or Torbin or whatever his name is.
Yeah, I did not like Yord. He's my least favorite character in the entire thing.
Yord wasn't good, and yeah,
this became across as a bit of an idiot.
Yes,
for me, and I felt like Mogadana, one of the other young guys playing, they just seem like pillocks to me.
Yes,
and I was like, if you're a Jedi Master, you should be wise and kind of.
Yeah, I don't think they were masters,
sensible.
were they? They were like a Jedi.
Yeah, well, they weren't masters. Yeah, but they were Jedi Knights. But they were knights. Weren't
they were fully ordained.
They were knights, and I just felt like they were too stupid. I felt Yord got a bit better as he stepped back a little bit. We didn't have to see him too much on, but yeah, I thought. No, you're right. There was a certain element. Some of the casting was weak. I feel.
Yes, I agree, and I also think they tried to make the Jedi a bit too emotionless. I don't think that they are totally. You should be totally emotionless. I don't think that they should be. They're not like Vulcans, from Star Trek. They're still people. It was better when you had the more established people in it. When the flashbacks with Carrie-Anne, while she was a little bit better, and her with Sol they were quite good together.
Yeah.
But the young girl, Jeckie,
Dafne Keen,
yeah. She's obviously in the
Dark Materials,
wasn't she? In that,
I thought she was good.
She was all right. She was all right.
Yeah, she just was a believable person. She acted more like, I would imagine, although she seemed young for Jedi Knight, she did strike me more as a capable person.
I think she was just a Padawan.
No, she was. Yeah, no. Was she Carrie-Anne Moss's Padawan?
Was she Sol's?
No, Sol was seeking was.
No, that's in the flashback.
That's in the flashback. Yeah,
but that's 16 years before. So I think she was his Padawan. Obviously, she gets killed. I mean, she puts in a brave fight against. She put up one of the best fights, didn't she? Really, against him.
Yeah. Apparently, Dafne, I saw in an interview, she said that the training for the fights was very intense, but that she thoroughly enjoyed it. Yeah. And that you can tell by the effort that she put into that sequence.
Yeah.
That was good.
Well, the other thing that I thought would be good to talk about was the Jedi Order itself, how they portray it. I think this harks back to something I said earlier about, they talked about the Jedi Order in the original films. And then they've got to try and demonstrate it, and I suppose they've also had the prequel stuff where you saw the great Jedi temples and so on. So it kind of, they're still trying to work with that. What did you think of the sort of senior Jedi? And I've forgotten all the names of the characters. The green Jedi woman. Venestra Rowe.
Yeah. So I think what's interesting for me is I actually thought that she was perfectly fine in the role. I didn't think she was bad. I didn't think she was great. No. I thought that she was dealing with a part which is shrouded in a lot of lore and mysticism, in the sense that she can't act out too much. She's just got a path. She's got to follow, because what we're witnessing is the kind of the breakdown of the power of the Jedi. And I think that what this shows is the fact that the Jedi are this supreme power, and we have the senator appear who questions what they do. What do you do? What is it that
Yes.
you actually? What is this force that you control? But are
Now,
you not? Are you
but yeah,
controlling your
but
emotions?
yeah, but
You know?
at that point, the Jedi are so well known, they're so well proliferated. Why? I don't see why he would be asking
They
questions of what the Jedi
He's
is, and
doubting their ability to do it.
well, that's a different thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
Uh,
he's basically saying we need control over what you do,
yeah, there needs
basically.
to be someone checking, making sure that you're
Yeah,
doing the right things.
yeah, and this
Power
is the
corrupts.
yeah, and this is them, the Senate, eventually going to be drawing in the Jedi
Yeah,
into their setup. So the Jedi have to respond to the Senate, and that is the setup for Saul to be in his position, the position of um, corrupt Jedi in a sense.
yes, yeah. He's
It
been used as a
facilitates that.
scapegoat, isn't he?
Yeah, well, and he is in a way, it is his fault. The way that the way that he disguised his knowledge of Oshi and what actually happened at the site. He's kind of been living a lie in a sense. At the end, when
Well, I think
Oshi,
the only thing he didn't admit to the fact that he had to kill the mother character.
yeah,
That to me was totally self-defense, and
he
in
persisted
what
with pulling the children away from the mother though. It was a kind of like they were doing something that the Jedi said they wouldn't do, drawing their sabers in certain situations when they're not meant to. They're meant to be like a peace treaty, a
I think they
peaceful
felt a
group.
bit. I thought there was a lot of times when they were being quite threatened, So they obviously went into the temple, confronted the whole group as they're doing their ceremony, and the leader takes over the mind of Torben. So,
Yeah,
there's a lot of reasons why
yeah. I mean, they opened
they
that
went into a sort
scene.
of self-defense mode. They could have
Yeah.
torn through all of those people, couldn't they? Really, if
Well,
they wanted to.
they came back to the monument, didn't they?
Yeah,
They penetrated the walls of the monument and appeared in their grounds, and they said to them, "You said you wouldn't come back," or something like that.
hmm.
And so it was a okay. It's not as it's a bit of a grey area, but for
Yeah,
me, that was very much about them invading their space and suffered as a consequence. And then it was kind of
yeah,
Saul's desire to have a Padawan, a
yeah,
pad as he wanted Oshi, and he picked
yeah.
between the two girls, didn't he? In the final, he kind of
Yeah, well, I think that was
it's
because
a kind of selfish act.
I think one had shown that she wanted it, and the other hadn't. So I think he was trying to say, I want her to be able to have what she wants to do, and that to me was a very mixed up bit in this whole story.
Indara told him that she was too old to be trained.
Yeah,
So,
I understand that. I understand that.
that
But Luke Skywalker wouldn't have been trained, would he, if he hadn't,
yes, well, different circumstances.
I understand, I think Saul's character, he sensed something in her, didn't he?
Yeah,
That was the thing, and it was obviously this divergence or vergence, or I don't know what they were calling
divergence,
it. They called it, was it
a
divergence, or was
divergence,
it was a weird,
divergence,
yeah.
as in something
But again,
diverging.
they didn't sort of, they said, oh, it's the same person, but
And
in
I don't think that these things necessarily need to be explained all the time. To be honest, when it comes to the,
yeah, but when they make a point
do we
about
want
it,
midichlorians or do we not? I
no.
mean,
Oh, I agree. I don't want midichlorians. I want it to
yeah,
be. I want it to be like magic. It's
yeah, and
supposed to be like
that's what it
magic.
was, and that's what it was. It was like
Yeah, but
magic.
why make a point of it then? Why make it such a big thing? And
I
again,
mean,
for me, like that through the storyline, they were making a big thing out of it, and that's why they wanted to go. So that's why there was an
I thought it
attack.
was more subtle than that. I thought it was a more subtle thing. We didn't quite understand it. Mentioned briefly in the points, but
Well, when the Jedi were on the planet and they were talking about what to do about it, they'd taken a sample of the girl's blood.
yeah,
They
which I
then
thought was
saw,
unnecessary.
oh, these two aren't twins. They're
They needed that as a device to recognize the fact that they're an entity rather than twins, didn't they? I don't think the writers could come up with an idea which could
I think
which could
what
lead
to,
them
to
to
me
that.
what it was what they were trying I think what they were trying to do was because Torben wanted to go home so badly. Um, he that's when he rushes off to he jumps on his little speeder bike thing and says, "Oh look, we know where the divergence is now. Let's
Mm,
let's go and sort it, and then we can go home."
mm,
And to me that was a really weak plot line about all this as well. Him wanting to go home, and he didn't know why they
mm.
were there, but he'd been there for 7 weeks,
They
and
didn't deal with that very well at all.
that was really badly done.
He
I think it's
could have
just things
been
like
affected.
this.
I think that that is probably the weakest thing in the story,
Yeah,
the Torben aspect.
yeah,
I
definitely.
think they could have, other than I think that definitely was the weakest, and people do point to that. But I kind of think that in the scheme of things, I think the soul would have gone back anyway, even if Torben didn't join him. I think that there was,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think that there's a little bit by the by really. The actor Charles Chapman didn't cover himself in glory
No,
acting that role out, did he?
no,
And I think it was very weak.
no. And then, I mean, obviously later on, he then takes the poison and all that sort of thing, and he felt really guilty. I don't know why again, I can't see why he was feeling
Yeah,
so guilty.
I think that
That's,
was the weakest thing about the whole thing.
you know what I
I
mean?
don't know why that was, but
He was
well,
actually a victim. He was like a victim, the poor guy.
yeah, I
He,
think what
he
they
got
should have
mind
done is
controlled. Then he
his
got
mind
attacked
should have been
by a
damaged.
Wookiee that
Yeah.
was being mind controlled. I can't see how he could feel guilty about it at all,
Well, I think he should be more. He could have been more damaged than that. The effect of the dark force on his
PTSD.
mind.
Yeah.
In a sense, PTSD, but also kind of like a form of corruption maybe could have affected him and made him more erratic. And we could have had
He
more
got
comment on
badly
that.
scarred, didn't he? He got badly scarred and he got badly
He did.
injured. So obviously
Yeah.
that obviously took its toll, didn't it? But
Yeah.
I think that's the only thing. I sometimes they're trying to they make a story seem like it's a really big story, and then there's no real big reveal. I know
Hmm.
they don't really sort of do much with the fact that they are a symbiont.
No, I think that some of that's left for the next
Yeah,
series. They
yeah.
they do cover it a bit, but I mean, it's. What did you think of Amandla Stenberg in her?
I thought she was one
Um,
of the weaker parts of it, to be honest with you.
mhm.
She it's I would have liked it to if there was a bit more difference between the two characters. I think that's the thing because it just felt like I was confused sometimes as to who I was looking at because
Mm,
they were just like she was just playing it
mm.
in the same way pretty much all the time.
I think they did that on purpose.
I know, and I know, and
They,
and that's probably more a writing thing than an actress
mm.
thing. But I I I couldn't stand her haircut. I mean, the haircut side of things was just atrocious. Just,
Yeah, and do you know
um,
what? And I think that that was a side effect of one of the story plots, in a
yeah,
sense, having her
her trying to
cut her
pretend
own
to be
hair
the,
off
yeah, I know,
and with the lightsaber, which
yeah,
I thought was tokenistic. I don't think it really worked that well because
no,
you wouldn't look the same if you burnt the ends of the hair off, would you?
no,
I mean, there was some that was silly. I actually thought that she wasn't that bad, but I didn't think she was that good. I
no,
thought that she was very much down the middle. There were points when I thought that was good that she remained emotionless some of the time, which I thought was
right.
good, and I think that um,
I mean, the last couple of episodes were a little bit better because she had a bit more to do.
yeah,
She sort of had that fight with herself,
yeah,
and had to become more aggressive, and that was a bit better.
yeah,
The first few episodes, I didn't really like her as a. Do you know what I mean? It's not like seeing Han Solo or
no,
Luke Skywalker or Princess Leia. They're not. It's not a character that I necessarily like. It's
mm,
just a her character is almost like a background character in some respects. I know they're part of this thing, but I also didn't want it to be treading on the toes of the fact that Anakin Skywalker was the chosen one to bring balance to the Force. I didn't want there to be another challenge of that, because that's totally unnecessary. That's the point of Star Wars. That's the point of the whole franchise to begin with, was the fact that Anakin Skywalker and would bring balance to the Force, and I'm kind of
I
glad
was
that
never
they
sold
didn't.
on that concept, to be honest,
No,
personally.
no.
That the Anakin thing. I think
But I suppose it was more a
what
prequel thing, wasn't it? It
yeah,
became
is a
prequel.
is a
Yeah,
prequel kind of
yeah.
thing. I wasn't a big fan of that concept. What I'm a big fan of, and what this show sets down, is
Mm.
it's basically saying, how can there be an almighty force like the Jedi without there being problems with it?
Yes,
Without there
yeah.
being flaws. I think that's largely what this is about. This is about how can the Sith rise from from a force that is so benevolent,
Yeah.
and I think that is, I think there's the grey areas of Soul's behaviour facilitate that, and I think it's a very subtle, clever thing they did with it, and a lot of people just seem to don't see that this is that it is about how people can be
To be honest with
corrupted.
you, I didn't feel like that about this. I felt
Mm.
Sol was a bit of a sad character, in the end. And it was more, he got a bit led by his own emotions. He didn't know how to
Yeah,
deal with things.
yeah.
I didn't think he was corrupt, and I didn't think
But
he
that
was
is the
do.
corruption. That's
No,
that's
I
what
don't think
they say.
he's.
Let your emotions
Yeah, but
take
I think you can't
control.
help it as a being, can you?
Yeah,
You
and
know.
that's the point. The fact that they're revealing that if that gets too much out of hand, it could let something in. It could let this this
Yeah, no,
the
I understand that, but if anything, I would say that the person who's most corrupt was the Green Jedi woman. She was the one keeping it away from the committee. She was trying to hide things. She
yeah,
didn't own up to the fact that the stranger guy was her Padawan who had become evil.
yeah.
She didn't say any of that, and she blamed it all on Sol,
She
who
did
was
blame it on
basic,
Sol, and
who
she
was
apologized to him at the end. She's when she
yeah, no,
kissed
I
him,
understand that, and I
and
know he
the,
was dead, and it then became a
the
political
cover up
tool.
carries on.
I
Yeah,
understand that. I understand that, but you know what I mean.
it is about the cover up. That's
I
what I'm
think what
saying.
I think what
The
you're
Vanessa
saying. I think what you're saying is more applicable to the Green Jedi than it is to Sol.
I do think that it is applicable to her, but I think that
Yeah,
the personal journey, the show is about Soul. It's about his journey, and we often come to him, and it's about how he at the end he says that he was wrong, that he should have told her, and he
well, I
lied
mean,
to
he
her
pretty
all
much
that
lets
time.
her kill him at the end, doesn't he?
Well,
He sort of
I
says,
don't know
"Oh, it's
whether her
okay."
power is that an indication of how powerful she is,
I
that
think
she's
she
able
just
to
did a
hold
force
him in
grip.
that force grip on him. If she's able to hold that force grip on him without him breaking it.
Yeah, but this is the problem with this program. There's no it's consistency. One minute she don't have any powers at all, and the
Yeah, but
next
she's
minute she's just as
awakening to the
powerful as
powers in
anything.
this. But
It's
she's awakening to that power because she's not a normal Jedi. She's some kind of
I know,
uh,
but again, she's doing
force
it without
entity.
any proper. It's I don't like it when they suddenly develop all these massive powers and they've had no training and they've had no real understanding. I know she put the helmet on and it gave her a nice quiet space to think
Awakened
about
her.
things, but to
Mm.
me, I just don't think that is you you don't naturally pull out these abilities and powers. That's one of my big criticisms of the last trilogy is that Ray could just seem to do whatever she kind of wanted to do, and was was way too powerful for her knowledge of the Force and knowledge of these things. I understand what you're saying
Well, you
about
could
an
argue
awakening.
with Osha
Hmm.
that she had some training as a Jedi.
That's true. That's
You
true.
know, uh,
But that's my problem with this is I keep getting the two characters mixed up because they
yeah.
because they were just so the same and interchangeable.
Well.
And it made me think, okay, right, yeah, maybe
Oh,
she did have
she
some.
is. It's an unusual character. She did have some training. She did fail. She was overly angry. She did have this. She's got this presence, this magic that she was made out of.
Yeah,
We don't quite know what the situation is with her now. That for some people, they're going to like that. Some people
yeah,
they're not. I found it exciting, and I wasn't going into this film thinking that it was going to be an academic essay on Jedi powers or anything like that. I just
no,
knew that it was going to
no.
be fun, and that's for me what I found with it. I enjoyed that. It was dramatic.
I think the
That
thing
fight
is
at the
they
end.
kept dropping in little things, and I felt it was trying to just get some sort of reaction and trying to do, like there's a bit where you see, is it Venestra? She's got a lightsaber whip,
Yeah, that's
that
her
was just
special
shown in
whip.
1 second, right? But then,
Yeah, that's
the
the
bit
the the,
where
the injury on
OSHA changes
Chimere's
the
back.
color of her blade from a blue to a red.
That again is in lore. That is
No, I did. Ah, is it? I didn't know that.
that's in Darth Plagueis. I think it's Darth
Oh,
Plagueis or one of the books. They basically the crystal splits and the saber turns red when
okay.
when the saber's taken by a Sith apprentice, or of that power.
See, I didn't know that. I wasn't
Yeah,
aware of
it's
that.
drawing in lore from other areas. That
Yeah.
is it
Well,
from the
obviously,
Legends books.
the helmet and what it was made of, I think, has been in other things. I've heard of someone
Yeah,
mention that before.
yeah,
And I thought that was a cool. I didn't mind that. I thought that was a cool idea. When he's
yeah,
fighting, he's headbutting the sabers and it's
yeah. I thought that was
knocking them out for a
fantastic.
few minutes. I thought
Yeah,
that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's a weird one. I'm so on the fence with this one because some of it I sort of think, oh, that's a bit, too close to the Anakin side of things or making someone
It's
special.
making references directly to that stuff. It's
Yeah,
purposely doing it.
yeah. It's interesting, interesting.
Mm.
Hmm.
There's lots of references between Yoda and Luke as well, with the kind of acolyte type relationship, and some of the languages that is used is virtually a direct copy from some of the Palpatine says some of the stuff. He says, "Strike me down," and then at the end, thing says, "Strike me down." There's a kind of like there are lots of parallels, and I just feel like it felt like they were trying to be Star Wars rather than something else. I felt like it was trying to be Star Wars, and
I don't know.
I enjoyed it.
I
And
don't.
then
The style of
the
the fighting was very different. There was a lot of certain style bits that were different, but yeah, I can see what you. There are quite, there is a feeling of Star Wars with it.
Yeah, the
Um,
rise, the power, the turning to the dark side, it's all those kind of usual tropes, which made me
yeah.
feel like it was very Star Warsy, and
I think for me, I was just a bit. It was just a bit disappointing how sometimes things just kept changing without real sort of. It didn't feel like it had real impact. Why they were changing their mind about doing something.
mm,
I think I
mm,
mentioned it earlier where May had said she's going to give herself up to the Jedi. She goes and then she's fighting them again.
mm.
It's things like that where you feel it's not consistent. That's just a little bit of the. I think that's it for me. Some of the
May's
storyline just wasn't
May's
100%
indecision.
consistent. You
Yeah,
know,
May
yeah, maybe
May's
that was her being torn
she
between the
was
good
torn,
and the
and in the end,
bad
she chooses
side.
the light side when she
Yeah,
says she's not going to kill him. She's going to turn him over to the authorities. So there's that tug within her that you see. I know what you're saying, and look,
yeah,
for
but now can
me,
she can't exactly be, come back to the good side because she's killed several Jedi. How can they even? I mean, if they consider taking her back into the Jedi, then I would be like,
I don't think they
hang on,
will.
that's a murderer who's just been let off. That's
Yeah, no,
ridiculous.
I don't think they will do that. But
Yeah.
I mean, she made the decision not to kill Soul in the end. But looking at it all, sitting back,
Hmm.
it's this simple to me, right? There was some bad stuff in there, but the good
Yeah.
stuff outweighed the bad stuff, and I enjoyed watching it. So,
Right.
which is a lot better than a lot of the Star Wars stuff that I've sat down and watched recently.
I,
And
I
when
I
I was
probably
blown
enjoyed about
away
40% of it. Okay, that's
when I
that's
was
where I'd
yeah
be.
fair enough. When I was blown away by that fight at the end. I just thought it was fantastic. And and they were
That
saying
was a
things
good
during the
fight.
fight. They were saying things during the fight like traditional proper,
Well,
like
that
you
to
know,
me is what makes a good fight.
yeah,
If you look
absolutely.
at any of the major, it's always when there's a personal
Mm,
vendetta or exactly that. Them
mm.
talking in the battle is
There's a bloody
really
good reason
important.
why they're fighting, and they're going to
Yeah,
tell the other one that that's the case.
yeah,
You know,
exactly,
and
exactly.
I feel like it wasn't perfect by any means,
No,
but
no, no,
I
no.
really enjoyed it, and I was surprised how much I enjoyed that last episode, and I
That's
just sat
good.
there riveted by it, thinking this is fantastic. And when Soul did the Force push, the 360 Force push, and pushed away the lightsabers, and I was like, yes, that is fantastic. And then he does
Really?
that
Oh,
double
okay.
kick on the chest. I thought it was
Yeah, that was
fantastic.
good. I like the double kick
Yeah,
bit, but
yeah.
the bit where the blades were flying at him and he did that, I was a little bit like, okay, yeah. Well, it was
Because
supposed to.
that it makes
Why
perfect
not?
sense.
Why
Yeah, I
not?
mean, why
Why
would you let
not?
flying lightsabers
I
behind
suppose
you
if
hit
you've got the
you?
ability to do push, move things with the force, surely you
Yeah,
can do things like that. It's just
yeah.
an extension of it, isn't it? I suppose.
Mm. And
Yeah,
I like the ships. I like the scenery. I love the way it looked. I
yeah.
thought there were
I
some
think that
really
was a
nice.
definite positive. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. I agree. There was
ships. That
some good
ship
scenery.
where they went through the rings on the
Yeah, but
planet. I thought was fantastic.
it was like a totally pointless bit, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? It was. I suppose she was
Oh
trying to.
no, there's a
I
bit of
suppose she was trying
chase,
to
bit of a
escape, wasn't
chase.
she? Yeah. I
Yeah,
suppose
it's
she
a
was trying to
chase.
escape. Yeah.
You try and put a chase in a good series, surely.
No.
I
No, that was
think.
quite good. The effects were good,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I
I
know
mean,
they have
visually,
spent quite a lot of money on this.
yeah, I think 150 million, isn't it, something like that?
Something like that. Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
But no, I thought it was great. In that respect, the visual, the immersion. I felt like it was Star Warsy. Yes, there were a couple of miscast
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
Yes, there were a few plot holes, but blimey, some of the crap TV I watch at the moment, I tell you, there is some crap around, and that I don't consider to be crap. I thought it was entertaining. But I would happily watch it again, if it was
Right.
like come round, in a couple of
Yeah, well,
years I
I
sit down.
watched it weekly. I watched it weekly, and
Yeah,
then I
me too.
watched it recently.
Hmm.
There were a couple of episodes where I was a bit like, yeah, this is a bit too filler for me.
Hmm.
But there were some other bits I thought, yeah, this is quite good. It's quite entertaining.
Hmm.
It's not, and at the end of the day, I don't think it's trying to destroy Star Wars.
No.
I don't think it's trying to be, like people are claiming, all this, it's now the Force is now a thread. No, it's not. That's all. That's how they define, and they've
Yeah.
sort of worked out how to use it. To me, it's just like a different type of religion, than what the Jedi is.
And I
And they're
think that
just
the use of the word thread
using the same
was
powers.
direct reference to some of the way it's described by Obi-Wan when he's talking to Luke. It's a force that binds and that connects us and binds us,
Yeah, yeah,
stuff like that. I think they listened to that and thought, right, what can we call that for these ladies?
yeah, yeah.
And did that. And I felt they didn't pluck some explanation out of the air and
And
just say,
it's a vast universe, isn't it? And
yeah,
this is just another way of expanding it a little bit to try and make it a bit more interesting. I think that's that side of it, the criticism, that side of it is definitely that's I don't think that's right.
mm,
They've tried to do something a little bit different. It's not reinventing Star Wars. It's not
no,
redoing anything like that. It's just one cult that are out there and they've just called it a thread. Who gives a
yeah,
fuck? It's like
yeah.
get over it.
I mean, I would
Um,
be interested to see other planets across the
yeah,
galaxy
yeah,
that have the Force and how they've interpreted it.
yeah, exactly.
Because the Jedi don't have
Yeah, it's like
it's
I
it's
think that's
not that
what his
they don't
point
have the
was, wasn't it?
license.
That's what the baddie's point was, that it was, he wants to be able to use the force the way he wants to, not be,
Exactly.
and that's an interesting point. That's a good point,
Mm,
you know.
yeah.
But again, the original films, you don't really see that in the first three because there is no Jedi Order, there is no Jedi Council, or
Yeah.
it's basically Obi-Wan, Yoda, and Luke, isn't it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
With a little bit of Leia.
Yeah.
I do, yeah, and I think that those first ones definitely benefited from not having the baggage that
Yes.
everything that all these series have,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah,
and
definitely. Definitely.
so
And I think also you got to remember this is a TV series,
yeah,
It's
good
not,
point.
it's not a movie. A 2 hour movie is full of action, isn't it?
Mm,
Especially Star Wars, the original Star Wars, they were full of
mm,
action. That's what it was about. Um, there's a bit more of it. They're trying to be a bit more intrigue. They're trying to have a
mm.
bit more of a plot line.
Different
Although to me,
concepts.
it's all a bit over the place, what they were doing. Um, I don't. I think what they were trying to do was a good idea.
Mm,
It just wasn't 100% how I would have done it, or how it would have,
no, I mean, if I said to you, would you like to know a story about a warrior who learns to use the Force to fight, but
Hmm.
not like Jedi?
Yeah,
I think
yeah,
that's
of
a pretty
course.
damn cool
Yeah.
concept.
No, that's true. That's
I think
true.
that's a really cool concept, and I think that's one of the founding principles of this show.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're
Mm,
saying, but it they that's what my point is. I want to
mm,
see that, but I want to see it done really well. And this was
yeah.
just sort of okay. A
Mm.
couple of good bits, some really not naff bits. The bit where he's skinny dipping and she picks up his lightsaber and he's like, "Hey, how do you like the feel of it in your hand?"
Yeah,
It was a
yeah.
little bit, well,
That was a bit tongue in
come
cheek. I
on,
quite
this
like
is
that. But there wasn't a lot of humor in this, was there?
no,
And that
no,
was perhaps one of its downfalls. But that I think was a nod towards humor. It just didn't work very
it didn't
well.
work. They
No.
tried it a few times with that Basil character,
Yeah.
and that really didn't work either.
No.
Uh,
They didn't
and
quite
and
figure that one
and
out.
there was one bit with him that I didn't work out. When she was trying to escape and Sol was chasing her, why did he then go and break the wires and stop him from chasing her?
Yeah,
I don't
is a.
understand that.
I know, and that's a clear inconsistency with
Yeah,
the storyline. I don't know why that happened, but I'm
yeah,
sure that there was a reason that we just
yeah.
don't know.
We just don't
You
know.
know, I
Yeah,
think maybe it does strike me that there were some bits cut out of this
maybe
would have
it might
made some
explain
sense,
things a bit better because
just
sometimes
a
it's like,
bit.
what the hell was that?
But I never thought that there was any glaring plot holes. I thought there were little niggly things, but there was always this. They were always heading towards one goal. Even if it changed,
Hmm.
I just felt like it kept moving. So anyway,
Well, it's good to talk about it anyway, and
yeah,
not sure if they're going to do another series or not. They left it open at the end there, didn't they, for a lot more to come. But
yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna do another one. I think.
good. Anyway, well, thanks very much for joining us today. If you like what we're saying, obviously press the subscribe button and the like, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.